Episode 7 begins with Celebrimbor forging the 9 rings for men. They even make him say the line,
9 for mortal men.
Sauron's illusion magic briefly fails as Celebrimbor sees a reflection of himself looking dishevelled. But when he goes to look again, the magic's back on as Sauron enters. Celebrimbor's dialogue suggests he's been making the rings for men for weeks, and that the rings will be finished in a few more days. So have the orcs been besieging Eregion for weeks? I guess we'll see shortly. Sauron is back outside, and Eregion looks like this is the very next day from when last episode ended. This level of destruction looks as though Eregion has been bombarded overnight, yet if weeks have supposed to have passed, Eregion should look far more destroyed. Like, most of these buildings and walls should be destroyed. Sauron orders the elves to prepare a counterattack as Adar gets his siege engines to hit this mountain to dam the river, which instantly works. Then Arondir arrives, but we cut to Moria. Na'vi tells the king that Eregion is under siege. So it has been weeks, as a messenger has travelled to Moria. It turns out Prince Durin and Disa have halted mining work. And have they not moved from this place in weeks? What have they been eating? Where have they been going to the toilet? The show acts as though this is the day after the last episode ended, yet dialogue tells us weeks have passed. Na'vi orders his men to throw down their weapons, and he declares his allegiance to Prince Durin. Na'vi tells Prince Durin an elf has arrived, and it's Elrond. Elrond asks Durin for his aid, and before Durin answers, we're back to Eregion, as the orcs cross the riverbed. The elves are shooting arrows, and the commander tells them to shoot, even though they already are. Miadania, a smith, is somehow allowed to walk the walls during active combat. Back to Celebrimbor, and he's starting to realise he's in a magic illusion. Sauron confirms this, claiming it's a peaceful gift to assist the deranged Celebrimbor. Sauron snaps and yells at Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor then throws his hammer at Sauron, but Sauron dodges, and the hammer smashes through a window, allowing Celebrimbor to hear the screams of Eregion. For some reason the populace of Eregion are just running around the city screaming. You'd think all the civilians would be in cover now, as weeks have supposed to have passed, but no, we still hear the screaming of women. Celebrimbor steps out onto the balcony and sees the ruined Eregion. Sauron's spell is off now, and Celebrimbor sees his workshop is also in ruins. Celebrimbor accidentally knocks over the vial of mithril, but it turns out to be full of black goo, so I guess the mithril appearance was also a part of the spell. Sauron then reveals the black goo is his blood, and tells Celebrimbor he's Sauron. Celebrimbor steps outside, and a catapulted rock knocks him over. Then I got an ad for Tulsa King Season 2, which is actually a good show, so if you're looking for something good, I'd recommend Tulsa King. Celebrimbor awakes and runs to Miadania, who is still on the walls watching the battle. Celebrimbor tells Miadania that Sauron has deceived them, but because Miadania is a fucking idiot, she looks disgusted and doesn't believe Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor tells the warriors to arrest Sauron, but the idiots don't believe him, as Sauron makes his black blood look red. Sauron then uses the Force to push Miadania off the walls and blames it on Celebrimbor. I mean, she deserved it, to be honest. This is all her fault for convincing Celebrimbor to let Sauron into Eregion. The dumb elven warriors really think Celebrimbor pushed her off the walls, and then none of them hear Sauron tell Celebrimbor that if Celebrimbor finishes the rings, Sauron will spare the city, and Celebrimbor is about to agree, but then Elrond's army arrives. Gil-galad is here, so I guess he changed his mind off screen? Or, a different writer wrote this episode, and did not read the scripts for the last few episodes. There's this weird camera angle as though shot through a fisheye lens. It's a weird visual because there has not been any shots like this before, and it's only for a few seconds, which makes it quite jarring. Anyway, as the elves are charging, Adar reveals Galadriel in a cage, and now the elves have their magical long sight as Elrond sees an orc spear tip draw Galadriel's blood. The elves stop their charge, and we cut to Adar treating with Elrond. Adar has read the script and says Elrond is better suited to holding a scroll than a sword, which he should not know. Adar then says every elf in Eregion is an agent of Sauron, which isn't true, and then says that Celebrimbor himself welcomed Sauron into Eregion, which not only should he not know, but also is not accurate, as it was on Myrdanea's insistence that Sauron be allowed in. Adar really believes Elrond will let him kill all the elves in Eregion because Adar thinks they're agents of Sauron, and acts like Elrond is in the wrong for refusing. Adar truly believes he can defeat Elrond in battle. Elrond then asks if his orcs want to risk their lives to prove that, and all the orcs start looking scared. Adar is then stupid enough to let Elrond approach Galadriel. Elrond then kisses Galadriel, like, what? I've mentioned this before, but Elrond in the lore marries Galadriel's daughter, Celebrian, so this is going to make for a fucking weird conversation if they ever bring Celebrian in. You know, I once snogged your mother before a battle, and then Elrond walks off. I thought he was about to free Galadriel, but no, he just kisses her and leaves. As Elrond leaves, he tells this elf, Vorahil, of the dwarves that are on their way, and of his plan for the dwarves to attack Adar's flank. However, the problem of this is now that won't happen. Somehow this will go wrong. Back to Moria, and Prince Durin is giving a speech to his warriors. During the speech, we cut back to Galadriel. It turned out Elrond snuck her his brooch, and she uses the pin to pick her shackles. So I guess these shackles are not the magnetic ones from earlier. We also see Celebrimbor in chains, finishing the rings while Sauron supervises. Back to Elrond, and the battle has begun. His horse then jumps into the air and flying kicks an orc, and the CGI looks so bad. The elves are just slaughtering the orcs, then these idiots ride into the swampy riverbank. Very conveniently, the elves sink down, but the orcs don't. For some reason, the elves didn't test the ground before riding in. To avenge his murdered horse, Elrond puts this orc on the catapult and shoots him at Eregion. What was the fucking point? He'd already stabbed him. It's incredibly lucky the rocks did not kill any elves in Eregion. Then we see really bad fire CGI on the catapult. The orcs begin to breach Eregion's walls, then we cut to it being night. The wall is stronger than the orcs expected, and Glug is worried too many are dying, and wants to retreat. Adar refuses, and then realizes Galadriel has escaped. So you're telling me Adar has not checked on Galadriel since Elrond left? Because Adar claimed if Elrond attacks, Adar would carry Galadriel's head into battle. Yet only now, at night, has Adar gone to check on Galadriel. Anyway, Galadriel is leaving the camp dressed as an orc, and none of the orcs notice her obviously human face. I guess they're not looking for her, but still you can clearly see her wholesome Welsh face and strands of her hair. Galadriel gets away with this, until the script needs her to be noticed. But when she is, Arondir saves her. Arondir wants to do a suicide mission to kill Adar, but Galadriel convinces him not to. Also, as Galadriel escaped, she could have stolen Morgoth's crown, but she didn't for some reason. Back to Moria. Prince Durin is about to leave, but Na'vi runs up, saying the king killed his men and plans to dig, which will unleash the Balrog. Na'vi tells Durin to recall the army, and before Durin answers, we're back to Sauron. Sauron attempts to make Celebrimbor feel bad for him, saying he was tormented by Morgoth, but this obviously doesn't work. Sauron then says it's Celebrimbor's fault for making Sauron deceive him, but this also does not work. All of a sudden, Celebrimbor is acting like a regular character, and when Sauron leaves, Celebrimbor then drops the rings in the fire in an attempt to destroy them. Back to the siege, and the elves are firebombing the orcs, as Elrond's forces are cleaving their way through from the rear. Celebrimbor failed to melt the rings, so he puts them in a bag and tries to break out of his shackles. This fails, so he cuts off his thumb to slip out of the shackle. Once he's left, elven warriors grab him to return him to the tower. Apparently this is more important than killing orcs, but then Galadriel arrives. Celebrimbor gives Galadriel the rings and tells her to flee, and while they're talking, these 6 elves are just standing around. They should be back on the walls killing orcs, but no, they're just wasting time. And when Galadriel and Celebrimbor are talking about how Anatar is Sauron, none of these elves have any reaction. Anyway, Celebrimbor will stay to trick Sauron while Galadriel flees with the rings. Apparently, Elrond's elves stopped bothering to attack the catapults, as they're still launching barrages. The Asian elf, Rian, destroys the battering ram, and as she shoots the arrow, all the orcs have read the script, so they turn away from their tasks to watch it. They should not know the arrow is coming, but them watching does nothing as the ram explodes. Adar then orders the Mike Ermintrout troll to attack. Glug protests, saying Mike will kill their own orcs, but now Adar is back to not caring about his supposed children and orders the Mike Ermintrout troll to attack. Arondir is now on the walls of Eregion, not in cover, shooting orcs. Then the Mike Ermintrout troll makes his appearance. Sauron is looking for the rings, but instead of delaying Sauron, Celebrimbor mocks him, saying the rings are far away. The elven warriors with Celebrimbor go to arrest Sauron, but he starts force choking the commander and makes the other elves turn their swords on each other. The Mike Ermintrout troll approaches the wall, killing both orcs and elves who are in his way, and Arondir and the other elves start shooting at him. Glug, seeing Mike kill orcs, is unimpressed. For some reason, none of Elrond's elves attack Mike, and Mike starts ramming the wall. Gil-galad rides up and attacks him, finally. Then Arondir and Elrond kill him. Wait, what the fuck? The Mike Ermintrout troll was supposed to be, well, the Mike Ermintrout foil for Sauron's Walter White persona. And now he's dead, and did not do anything like that. Adar is back to calling the orcs his children and orders them to charge, but Glug doesn't and seems to retreat. Elrond thinks the dwarves have arrived, but it's just Vorahil, who says the dwarves are not coming and that the gates of Moria are shut. The elves keep fighting and Adar stabs Arondir. I'm not sure if he's mortally wounded though, even though he was stabbed twice. The orcs then breach the walls, Adar steals Galadriel's ring from Elrond, and the episode ends, and this really weird song starts playing. Wow, that was a bad episode. I guess Adar stealing Galadriel's ring from Elrond is why the writers made Galadriel leave Morgoth's crown behind, as I guess the show will bait Adar killing Sauron, now that he has both the crown and a ring. And I can't believe they killed the Mike Ermintrout troll already, unless he's not dead, but I mean, they certainly made it look like he was dead. Now that the 9 rings are forged, let's talk about the forging of all the rings in regards to the lore. So, in the lore, Sauron arrives to Eregion already in his Anatar form. The Halbrand persona doesn't exist in the lore. Sauron can easily influence men, but cannot do the same to the elves unaided. Sauron, as Anatar, gains the trust of the elves in Eregion by sharing his knowledge with them, before suggesting they forge the rings. Whereas in the show, Sauron arrives as Halbrand, then turns into Anatar immediately, to get Celebrimbor to forge rings specifically for dwarves and men. But in the books, the 20 or so rings that Celebrimbor and Sauron make together are given to the elves in Eregion. Sauron then leaves to Mount Doom and forges the One Ring, and while he's doing so, that's when Celebrimbor alone forges what will be the 3 elven rings, Vilya, Narya, and Nenya. Anyway, Sauron makes the One Ring and puts it on to dominate the elves, but the elves realize what Sauron's trying to do, and take them off before they become his slaves. Sauron, furious, wants the rings back, and claims that because he helped make them, they're his by right. The elves refuse, and Eregion is attacked by Sauron, not Adar, as Adar does not exist in the lore. Sauron sieges Eregion and gets his rings back, but the 3 Celebrimbor made make it out. The 3 rings forged alone by Celebrimbor and untouched by Sauron make them the most powerful, after the One Ring. Sauron failed to dominate the elves, so of the rings he got back, he gave 7 to the dwarves. However, Sauron could not easily influence the mind of a dwarf, so instead of dominating the dwarves, the rings made the dwarven lords really greedy and isolationist, similar to how King Durin becomes, but not so comically greedy. Though the rings do bring about the deaths of the 7 dwarven lords, as dragons show up, kill them all, and steal their wealth. Sauron ends up getting some of those rings back, and then gives 9 rings to men, whom, as you'd know if you'd watched the films, are easily manipulated by Sauron because of their fear of death. And what was the line? Those who used the 9 rings became mighty in their day, kings, sorcerers, and warriors. They obtained glory and great wealth, yet it turned to their undoing, and one by one, sooner or later, according to their native strength and to the good or evil of their wills in the beginning, they fell under the thraldom of the ring they bore and under the domination of the One, which was Sauron's. I'll stop there for now, and I'll see you next week for the finale.
死んじゃうよ